Hello there, welcome to Lagos Transportation Agenda. This is a show in which we highlight the activities, the projects, the programs, and the projections of the Lagos State government as far as transportation is concerned in the short, medium, and long terms. This is the show in which we also engage influential, knowledgeable, and innovative stakeholders. My name is Austin Inyang. Today on the show, we are looking at the rail sector as a component of the Lagos State government's quest to develop a seamless, world-class intermodal transportation system. And no better personality to talk about it than the Honourable Commissioner of Transportation in Lagos State, Dr. Frederic Oladeinde. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, sir. Dr. Oladeinde and I will be discussing the rail subsector of the Lagos transportation ecosystem after this time out. Please stay with us. Welcome back. It's the Lagos Transportation Agenda, and today we are beaming our laser-like focus on the rail sector in the state. Honourable Commissioner, welcome once again. The drive to establish this intermodal transport system has received a tremendous boost since the inception of the present administration, which has followed up on the efforts of previous administrations. And we've seen so much investment in all the sectors and the networks. In our previous editions, we talked about, we dealt extensively on the road. So now we are looking at rail sector. Well, can you give us a brief overview of the key things that the government has done to advance the rail sector in the past, in the life of this administration, at least?
So when you look at what we're doing currently, the Strategic Transport Master Plan highlights 7 rail lines. Okay. So we've embarked on 2. The blue line, which is from Okokomaiko to Marina. This will be done in phases. So the first phase is from mile 2 to Marina, and we're about 90% done with the fixed infrastructure. We have acquired a set of rolling stock with 4 cars, and then there are 2 others that are coming, so that we can begin operation by first quarter of 2023. The second one is the red line from Agbado all the way to Marina. Also, that will be done in phases. So the first phase is from Agbado all the way to Oyingbo, after Ibutimeta. And we will start passenger operation also by first quarter of 2023. Okay. Now that particular one is sharing the same track as the national rail that goes from Lagos State to Ibadan. And so it makes it faster for us to actually share the track, build our own stations. We're building 8 stations on the red line, and to begin operation as quickly as possible. So for the blue line, let me go back to the blue line. The blue line would have, the first phase would have 5 stations. We have built 4. Which is completed, and then the 5th one is the Marina station, which we are fast completing. And after that, we will start testing. Okay. And then after the testing, we'll then obviously ensure that the whole thing is safe. The track is walled off from people crossing the track, etc., so that we make it safer, and then we'll then begin testing, and then obviously we'll then move into passenger operation. But I think it's important to wind back and to understand why the rail line is actually important for Lagos. So people will say we're about 22 million today. Other people will say 25 million, but whichever statistics that you look at, it's important to know that every year 1 million people is added to the population of Lagos. And so that means that by 2100, Lagos would have a population of over 90 million, close to 100 million people. And the question you need to ask yourself is, how are we going to move these people en masse from one point to the other? And that's why the rail line is important, and that's why integration is important, and that's why it's important that we give people options. So the rail line will be there. We're building the bus rapid transit that will move people en masse. We're building water transport, and that's why the government has embarked on 15 jetties right now, which we would complete and then connect to the various rail stations, bus stations. And then we talked about the taxis the other day. That gives people that complete option. And then the non-motorized transport, giving people options to walk to the station, to cycle, or even to drive and then park their cars at stations. So these are all the investment that are going on in Lagos today. But focusing on the rail line has the potential to move over 1 million people a day from one point to the other without clogging up our roads. And that's why we're doing everything possible to make sure that during this administration, the blue line, the first phase of the blue line and the first phase of the red line becomes operational. The blue line will be electrified, and we're talking to the Ministry of Energy, where we're building a power plant that would actually power that line, because I think that's also important for climate change. It's important that we don't continue to pollute the environment. The red line, because the federal government has embarked on the diesel multiple unit, I think we would go with the diesel multiple unit for starters, and then over time we would then convert that to electric. But there's a lot of investment going on in ensuring that we power the blue line, that we test and make sure that it's safer. We wall off the corridor, and then we get it into passenger operation by the first quarter of 2023. Likewise, the red line. Red line, you will see that the red line actually interact with traffic at major junctions. So when you look at Ikeja, when you look at Mushin, when you look at Yaba, and when you look at Oyingbo, you will see that there's a level crossing, a grade level crossing, where the rail as well as passenger cars interact. And that's very dangerous. And we want to ensure that there's a seamless rail operation. And that's why you see the government building overpasses, so that we separate the conflict between rail and cars. So at Yaba, you will see the overpass. At Oyingbo, you will see the overpass that we're building. And at Ikeja, you will also see the overpass. Likewise, I think the other one is Oyingbo. So there's a lot of construction going on there, and then we're trying to make sure that we finish all those overpasses by November, so that we can begin testing in December, and then we then move into passenger operation. For the blue line, obviously we're going across the lagoon from National Theatre, and then the rest is at grade, so that's much more simpler than the red line. But you can see that there's a lot of operation. I mean, there's a lot of work going on just to make sure that we complete the fixed infrastructure, the rail stations required. Recently, we signed an MOU with Ogun State, because Agbado, which is the last station on the red line, is actually in Agbado. And we signed that, and we've now moved into where we're going to build the station. We have compensated the people where we have to take over their property, and so that we can build that station and ensure that we complete before that operation. So there's a lot going on in the rail sector.
Okay, you mentioned where the some of those lines intersect, or you're sharing the lines with the National Railway
That's
and so
correct.
on. So let me just take you up on the synergy and maybe even the prospective synergies with the federal government and even possibly international development partners. I mean, Lagos, after all, is not just the commercial hub of Nigeria, but also the entire West African sub-region. So I want to know the state of synergy between the Lagos State government and the Nigerian Railway Corporation, and maybe even further afield, other partners beyond the shores of Nigeria.
Okay, so our relationship with NRC goes beyond this administration, and we started a dialogue with the federal government as far back as 2005, 2006. And ever since we've been in dialogue, we have talked about how they would run their operation and then how we would run our operation in such a way that there's no conflict. And it was that dialogue that led to us signing a deal that allows both the Lagos State government and the federal government to actually use that track.
Yes.
So when you look at the operation of the federal government, you will see that maybe the train runs once every 2 hours. And then after the 2 hours, that 2 hours window is redundant. And that's the opportunity that Lagos State wants to use to run as many trains as possible within Lagos State, just to make sure that we can move people en masse. And most importantly, the federal government has a lot to gain from Lagos State, as well as Lagos State has a lot to gain from the federal government. So, for example, when you're coming from Ibadan, and the way the whole thing is structured is that there is an integration point at Agbado, there is an integration point at Agege, and then Ebute Metta. So when people come from Ibadan, Abeokuta, etc., and come into Lagos, they can get down at Agege and then board our red line and then go to other parts of Lagos. Likewise, people that want to use the national rail can use the red line, get to those stations, and then move to Ogun State and Oyo State. So you can see that we are complementing each other.
Yes.
And so these are part of the dialogues that we had, and then these are the numbers that we crunched just to make sure that both parties are in a win-win situation. And so I would say the relationship is strong. We are continuing to collaborate to make things better, to see how we can use technology to actually optimize and improve the interaction between the intra system as well as the inter. So it's a dialogue that will continue forever.
All right. When we come back, sir, we'll talk about security on the Lagos transportation agenda. Don't go away.
Great economies are built on good transportation network. This is why Lagos State Government through LAMATA has been working tirelessly to enhance the state's transport infrastructure and implement the Strategic Transport Master Plan (STMP) for Lagos and create a world-class transport network for the metropolis. The STMP would deliver 6 rail lines, 1 monorail, 14 BRT routes, 26 water transport routes, 3 cable car routes, and several road intervention to promote the integration of the transport modes. When all these projects are completed, there will be lower emission, leading to better health for all, lower road crashes, better quality of life, and faster economic growth. With the BRT already running in some corridors, jetties being upgraded, and rail line from Okokomaiko to CMS coming on board soon. Life of Lagosians in the face of Lagos is changing every day. A healthier and more prosperous Lagos is in the making, and LAMATA is driving it. LAMATA, keeping Lagos moving.
Welcome back on Lagos Transportation Agenda, and I still have the Honourable Commissioner for Transportation in Lagos State, Dr. Frederic Oladeinde, on the show today. And as I said before the break, we look at the concerns about security, such a hot topic in our country today from that. So what's the government's plan or activities concerning keeping that particular sector safe?
Okay, so the plan of the government is not just limited to the rail sector. So first of all, the Lagos State government is developing this smart city initiative where we are deploying a lot of technology to ensure that we run some of our operations, and that we make sure that our transport system in particular is safe. So in developing the smart city initiative, the government is laying about 6,000 kilometers of fiber optic cable.
Okay.
And this cable forms the bedrock upon which other technology can be developed.
Yes.
And so with that, the government is deploying over 2,000 cameras initially at strategic points. This includes transportation also. So all our stations, all our bus stations, etc., would have cameras that monitors what is happening. And because the train that we're running is intra-city, it's not inter, so it's much more easier for us to control what happens within.
Because some of these places in other states, other parts, they go through bushes and also.
Yes, absolutely.
Isolated.
So our trains would, we're deploying what we call intelligent transport system. So most of our trains would have cameras.
Okay.
We'll be able to monitor the activities of the driver. We'll be able to talk to the driver, and then we'll be able to get feedback of images from the train to our control room.
Okay.
And all these are what we're developing just to make sure that we make the rail system safer. I mentioned, I think in our last program, that most of our corridors will be walled off. It will be difficult for people to actually get on our tracks.
Okay.
And so we'll have police, etc., monitoring just to make sure that there's no interference with the operation of our train system within Lagos State. So these are all the measures that we're putting in place just to make sure that we run a safe, seamless rail operation in Lagos.
So let's talk about sanitation, congestion or lack of it, and the whole environmental impact of the rail system
that we're going to run in Lagos.
Yeah, as we do in Lagos.
Okay, we're bringing in the private sector to actually run our trains, so they will be regulated, and then there will be rules of engagement. Okay, so the trains that we're going to be running here, when we engage the private sector will be responsible for ensuring that the trains are clean.
Yes.
They'll be responsible for ensuring that there are adequate numbers of cars, car trains that are deployed to cater for the demand at any particular point in time.
Yes,
and then we'll be regulating just to make sure that they meet those targets. And if they don't, there are other people waiting.
Who are waiting.
So there will be stringent KPIs, which we will deploy just to make sure that we run an effective train system, we run a safer train system, we run a train system that's clean, we employ the right people, and then we ensure that the tracks itself, etc., it's monitored, and there will be no interference. In fact, you won't be able to get on top of the train. It will be impossible. And it will even be dangerous because the train that we are running, the Blue Line, is electric, so you can't even get on top of it.
Exactly.
The private sector would be engaged to run those trains. The government will simply regulate and ensure that we get value for money for our people.
All right, just a final question, sir. You talked about the government's expectation that in the near future there will be about 1 million people being moved by trains per year. So,
well, that's one corridor. So I said the Red Line will be able to move about 1 million people, but what Lagos State is targeting over the next decade is to move about 6 to 7 million people per day.
Per day.
On the train, yes.
And what's the figure now?
Well, we haven't started running.
Okay.
So, but
My question arises from the fact that sometimes there are cultural barriers, pushbacks towards things that we have not experienced before or have not been used to on a regular basis, such as, say, even water transportation,
yes,
and also rail. The people getting so used to traveling by road and so on. How do you intend to, overcome some of the resistance that might come in terms of pushback?
Okay, so I'm not sure we're going to experience that. I think a lot of people are yearning for the train to come, and that's because in the past we've operated trains. A lot of people use public transport. They're not comfortable with the public transport that we use, and that's why we're reforming the bus sector. There will be a lot of things that we'll do to ensure that we make public transport more attractive. In fact, we make it much more viable for people to use public transport than to use cars. And that's why the Lagos State government implemented the Cowrie card about 2 years ago,
Yes.
which enables people to use that card on various modes of transport.
Yes.
It just means that you don't have to carry cash. It means that when you are going from A to B and you have to use 3 modes of transport, rather than paying for individual, you only pay one single fare, and then when you get to the final destination and then you clock out, it calculates the distance rather than the number of modes that you use, so it makes it attractive. Also, by the time we make it safer, and then obviously you will find out that using public transport like your BLT, your rail, will be less stressful than driving on the road. So
Exactly.
These are the comfort, and especially, when you get to junctions and interchanges, we're going to give more priority to public transport. So the traffic lights would favor public transport. The rail, the headway would favor people going to work in the morning, so that we're able to mop up the massive demand, etc. It's about making it comfortable.
Yes.
As people are comfortable to using down foods, etc., we'll make people comfortable to using rail.
Exactly.
And it's just about the incentive that you put in place, just to make sure that it's attractive, it's cheaper, it's safer, and I think people would gravitate towards rail, towards our BLT. And when you look at what's happening on water transport, something that we'll talk about later,
Yes.
with some of the measures that the government is putting in place, we've developed our control room. We're able to monitor what is happening on our waterways, the life jackets that we're giving, etc. People are getting more comfortable.
Yes.
So it's the onus is on government to make sure that it puts everything in place to make sure that people are safe, people are comfortable, and people find public transport much more attractive than driving their cars.
Well said. Thank you so much, sir, for your time. I've been discussing with the Honourable Commissioner for Transportation in Lagos State, Dr. Frederic Oladeinde, on the rail sector as a component of the intermodal transportation ecosystem that the Lagos State government has been developing. Thank you for watching. I hope you join me next time on this show, on this station, on Lagos Transportation Agenda. My name is Austin Inyan. Please take care. Stay safe. God bless. Bye-bye.